What if we already received the message? For decades, humanity has searched the stars. We sent signals into space. We built giant telescopes. We listened in silence, waiting for something to answer. But what if the answer already came? And what if it was hidden? In the late hours of a quiet observation night, a signal appeared. Too organized to be random, too distant to be human, too powerful to ignore. Then suddenly, it vanished. No explanation, no repeat, no public answers. Only rumors, leaked documents, whispers from scientists who refused to speak on record. Some called it interference. Others called it the greatest discovery in human history. Tonight, we uncover the mystery of the secret alien signal NASA never explained. The night everything changed. It began with a radio telescope aimed into deep space. The mission was routine: scan background noise, collect standard cosmic data. Nothing unusual was expected. Then the instruments froze. A narrow-band signal peered through the static, strong, precise, repeating. Unlike natural pulsars, unlike known satellites, unlike anything in the database. Technicians thought it was equipment failure. They reset systems. The signal remained. Then it changed frequency, as if responding. Inside the control room, no one spoke, because everyone understood the same terrifying possibility. Something out there knew we were listening. The code inside the sound. When analysts converted the transmission into visual patterns, rows of repeating sequences emerged, prime numbers, then geometrical intervals, then something even stranger, a map, not of Earth, not of our solar system, but of stars positioned around a center point unknown to scientists at the time. Years later, astronomers discovered a previously unnoticed star cluster matching the pattern. How could the signal reference something humans had not yet identified? Coincidence? Or proof the sender knew more than we did? Why it was silenced? If the signal was real, why didn't the world hear about it? Former insiders claimed 3 reasons: public panic, military interest, religious shock. Because one confirmed alien message would instantly change everything. Borders become meaningless, science rewritten, belief systems shaken, power structures threatened. So instead of announcement, the event was classified, buried beneath technical reports, labeled equipment anomaly, archived in silence. But secrets leak, and some say fragments still exist online hidden in old data repositories. The second transmission. Years later, another observatory detected a shorter pulse. Same direction, same frequency family, only 6 seconds long. But this time the pattern translated into one repeating phrase: "Are you still there?" No official source confirmed it, no official source denied it. And that silence created the legend. What if it was never aliens? There is another theory, far stranger. The signal did not come from another civilization. It came from us, from humanity's future, a message sent backward through time using physics we do not yet understand, warning us, guiding us, testing whether we survived. If true, then the question is no longer, are we alone? It becomes, what happened to us?
Don't forget to like and subscribe for more.
The room with no windows. Beneath a remote research facility, according to former contractors, there was a chamber never listed on official blueprints. No windows. No exterior walls. No visible network access. Only fixed steel doors and a room lined with acoustic panels. Inside stood banks of old equipment preserved long after newer technology replaced it. Why keep obsolete equipment? Because some systems are never connected to modern networks. They cannot be hacked. They cannot be traced. They simply listen. The rumor says this room was dedicated to one purpose: monitoring the original signal. Day and night. Year after year. Engineers rotated in silence. No phones allowed. No notes removed. And on certain nights, the machines reportedly activated on their own, receiving bursts no satellite could explain. Whether true or fiction, stories like this survive because they feel possible. And possibility is where conspiracies grow strongest. The language without words. Linguists invited to review leaked fragments noted something unusual. The pattern did not behave like human language. No repeating grammar. No predictable syntax. No symbolic redundancy common in natural speech. Instead, it resembled layered mathematics. Ratios inside ratios. Sequences embedded in larger sequences. Meaning carried through structure rather than vocabulary. What if advanced civilizations no longer use words? Words are imprecise, emotional, cultural, fragile. But mathematics is universal. Geometry crosses species. Prime numbers do not need translation. A circle means the same in any sky. Perhaps the message was never meant to be heard. It was meant to be solved. And perhaps we are still too primitive to read it. The scientist who changed his story. One retired researcher publicly dismissed the event for decades. He called it noise, instrument error, media fantasy. Then late in life, during an unscripted interview, he paused when asked one final question. If it was only noise, why did you keep the recordings? He smiled, looked away, and answered softly, because noise does not repeat its mistakes. The clip spread online for years. Some say he was joking. Some say he was tired of lying. Others claim the interview was edited. But one sentence was enough to reignite everything. Because if random static repeated intelligently, then it was not static at all. The signal from the dark side. Another theory points not to distant stars, but much closer. Some independent researchers believe the source came from behind the moon. Not the visible side. The far side. A place naturally shielded from Earth's radio noise. Ideal for hidden observation. Ideal for a transmitter. Ideal for something that does not want to be seen. There is no verified evidence for alien bases on the moon.
But conspiracy culture thrives on one fact. The far side remained unseen by humanity for most of history. And mystery fills empty maps quickly. If something watched us from there, it would hear every broadcast we ever sent. Wars, music, languages, fear, hope. Then one night, it answered. The message inside the image. When one fragment of data was converted not into sound but into pixels, a strange image emerged. At first it looked meaningless. Black and white noise. Then contrast was adjusted. Shapes appeared. A circular object. 3 smaller forms nearby. A horizon line. Some insisted it was pareidolia. The mind finding patterns in chaos. Others believed it was deliberate low-resolution imagery. A proof of concept. A simple statement. We can send pictures too. If an intelligence wanted to introduce itself carefully, this would make sense. No invasion. No speech. No demands. Just evidence of presence. A whisper through static. Enough to be noticed. Not enough to cause panic. The countdown theory. Online analysts once discovered that intervals between alleged signal bursts matched decreasing numerical gaps. 144 days. 89 days. 55 days. 34 days. 21 days. 13 days. 8 days. The pattern resembled the Fibonacci sequence, a countdown hidden in mathematics. Skeptics noted cherry-picked data and weak sourcing. Yet the theory exploded because it carried terrifying suspense. A countdown to what? Contact? Arrival? Activation? Or a human attempt to manufacture myth from coincidence? Sometimes people need mystery so badly they build it themselves. But sometimes fabricated stories accidentally orbit real events. And that makes separating truth from fiction nearly impossible. The archive that disappeared. A small amateur forum once hosted raw telescope files allegedly tied to the first incident. Then overnight, the site vanished. Backups failed. Mirrors disappeared. Accounts went silent. Normal internet decay can explain this. Servers close every day. Yet to believers, the disappearance meant only one thing. Someone wanted it gone. That belief gave the legend a second life. Because hidden information is more powerful than public information. Once people think something was erased, they assume it mattered. And maybe it did.
The man who heard it live. Among the many stories surrounding the signal,
One remains especially strange. A young technician working the overnight shift claimed he heard the transmission before anyone saw it on the monitors, not through speakers, not through equipment. He said he felt it first, a pressure in the room, a vibration in his chest, then a tone, low and rising, though no audio feed was active. Moments later, alarms triggered across the consoles. The signal had arrived. He repeated this account years later, insisting the sound seemed to come from everywhere at once. Stress can distort memory, fatigue can create sensations. But if electromagnetic fields affected the room, unusual physical responses are possible. Still, one question remains. Why did he describe the signal before the machines detected it? The object that moved with it. During one later observation window, an orbital tracking station reported an unidentified object altering course near Earth's upper atmosphere. Not a confirmed spacecraft, not a known satellite maneuver, just a brief anomaly. What made the report notable was timing. It occurred within minutes of a suspected repeat burst from the same region of space. Coincidence is common. Space is full of debris, sensor errors, and incomplete data. Yet patterns invite meaning. To believers, the object was monitoring our reaction. To skeptics, it was unrelated noise attached to a dramatic story. But the combination of signal plus movement created a powerful narrative. Something sent the message. Something came closer. Something was watching. The theory of selective contact. Why send only fragments? Why not a clear greeting visible to the whole world? One theory suggests intentional filtering. Only civilizations advanced enough to detect, decode, and debate the signal are meant to notice it, like a test, a threshold. A species that cannot cooperate over uncertain evidence may not be ready for direct contact. Look at humanity's response to ambiguity. We split instantly. Fraud, truth, threat, hope, weapon, miracle. Maybe the message was never about information. Maybe it was about observing us, how we behave when offered the possibility we are not alone. If that is true, then we may already be answering. The basement recordings. A rumor spread among enthusiasts of old science facilities. Duplicate tapes of the original event were hidden off-site by a cautious engineer, not in a vault, not in a bank, in a private basement, labeled as weather archives. After his death, relatives allegedly found shelves of magnetic reels and notebooks written in code-like shorthand. Nothing publicly verified ever surfaced, no confirmed chain of custody, no released audio. And yet treasure hunt stories endure because they promise one thing people love most: proof, waiting in ordinary places. Imagine the greatest discovery in history sitting dusty and forgotten beside paint cans and holiday boxes. Impossible? Maybe. But history has found masterpieces in attics and manuscripts in trunks before. Why not signals too? The warning interpretation. Some analysts who study leaked patterns argued the message was not a greeting. It was a warning. Repeated clusters appeared near symbols interpreted as trajectory markers or time intervals. They believed it described a movement, approach, danger, or avoidance. This is highly speculative, perhaps wildly wrong, but warnings capture attention because they force urgency. If another intelligence tried to warn us, what would it warn about? An asteroid? A cosmic event? Another civilization? Ourselves? Sometimes the most frightening possibility is not aliens arriving. It is aliens knowing what comes next. The signal that changed people. Several individuals who worked near alleged data reviews later described life shifts that seemed disproportionate. Careers abandoned, marriages ended, relocations to remote areas, obsessions with astronomy, philosophy, or religion. Trauma can follow intense secrecy, so can burnout. Yet storytellers interpret these changes differently. They saw something worldview shattering. Even a small possibility of non-human intelligence could fracture ordinary priorities. Bills, meetings, routines, they shrink quickly beside cosmic perspective. If you truly believed a message came from the stars, could you return to normal life unchanged? Maybe the greatest evidence is not the signal itself. Maybe it is what belief in the signal did to people. The day the feed went silent. One internal memo, never authenticated, allegedly noted a scheduled observation period ending abruptly after external directive. Transmission channels cut, data mirrored, staff reassigned, no reason listed. Whether fake or real, the language fueled decades of speculation. External directive from whom? Government? Military? Private contractors? Or from something beyond human control? Conspiracy stories survive because official silence leaves empty space, and empty space gets filled, sometimes with truth, sometimes with fear, often with both. The question no one can erase.
Even if every leak is false, every memo fabricated, every witness mistaken, one question remains untouched. Why are we so certain no one has answered? The universe is vast beyond imagination. Billions of stars, countless worlds. Age is older than humanity by incomprehensible spans. To assume silence may be reasonable. To assume permanent silence may be arrogance. Maybe no signal ever came. Maybe many came and were missed. Maybe one arrived and was buried. Or maybe the real message is still crossing darkness now, heading towards us at the speed of light.
The child who drew the pattern. Years after the first rumor spread, a teacher in a small town shared an unusual story. A child in her class had drawn repeating symbols during free time. Not letters, not numbers, nested circles, angled bars, and spirals arranged in exact rows. When she later saw an article discussing leaked fragments of the signal, she claimed the child's drawing looked disturbingly similar. Memory can be unreliable. Adults often connect events after the fact. Yet the story spread because it touched something deeper, the fear that messages may appear in ways we do not understand, not only through machines, through intuition, dreams, patterns, coincidences. Humans are meaning-making creatures, sometimes too much so, but sometimes coincidence feels personal. The translation that was locked away. A former analyst once hinted that one internal team believed they had partially decoded the transmission. Not perfectly, only enough to identify repeating concepts: location, sequence, observation, return. No documents were produced, no proof followed, most likely rumor. Yet if true, it suggests something profound. The message may not have introduced itself. It may have described us. Imagine discovering that an unknown intelligence had already cataloged Earth, our orbit, our broadcasts, our development, watching from a distance not as conquerors, but as researchers. To many, that would be more unsettling than invasion, because invasion ends uncertainty. Observation extends it forever. The shadow network. Conspiracy communities often claim that major observatories around the world share a hidden emergency channel, not public, not scientific, reserved for unexplained sky events. According to the theory, when certain anomalies appear, select facilities switch to encrypted coordination instantly. This claim has never been verified, but it persists because cooperation already exists in ordinary astronomy. Scientists do share urgent alerts for real phenomena, so believers simply stretch the truth one step further. That is how convincing myths are built. Start with reality, add secrecy, add fear, then wait. Still, if a hidden network did exist, what kind of event would justify it? A comet? A hostile object? Or a second message no one wanted leaked? The signal during the storm. During a major geomagnetic storm, amateur radio operators across several countries reported brief, structured interference unlike usual solar noise. Sharp bursts, repeating intervals, a tone layered beneath static. Most experts attributed it to atmospheric effects and overloaded equipment. Reasonable, but enthusiasts compared recordings and claimed the intervals matched the original legend. Storms matter because they mask anomalies. If someone wanted to transmit unnoticed, chaotic conditions would be ideal. Of course, nature alone can explain much of this. Yet when mystery meets timing, stories gain power quickly. And power keeps them alive. The face in the data. One programmer attempted to visualize archived number strings connected to the case. He converted values into grayscale coordinates and posted the result online. At first glance, random blocks. Then users adjusted contrast. A shape emerged. Two dark oval regions. A narrow center line. A curved lower band. A face. Skeptics immediately called it pattern bias. They were probably right. Humans see faces everywhere,
from clouds to outlets to stars. But that did not matter. Once millions saw it, the legend changed forever. Now the signal was not just heard. It was seen. And images burn deeper into memory than numbers ever can. The message sent back. Some physicists speculate that if advanced civilizations mastered extreme gravitational engineering, information might move through time under rare conditions. Highly theoretical, unproven, yet enough to inspire a radical idea. What if the signal was our own future archive sent backward to preserve civilization? A breadcrumb through time. A warning packet. A test ping. If humanity one day faces extinction, sending data into the past may become more valuable than sending ships into space. Save ancestors. Alter fate. Guide origins. Then the strange familiarity some people claim to feel about the signal takes on a new meaning. Not alien. Ancestral. The night they looked up. In one city during a rumored transmission date, social media filled with people reporting the same impulse. To step outside and look at the sky. No coordinated campaign. No known event. Just scattered posts from strangers saying they suddenly felt compelled to stare upward. Psychology offers simple explanations. Suggestion spreads fast. Humans mirror behavior. Still, stories like this endure because they feel symbolic. As if somewhere inside us lives an ancient instinct. When something calls from above, look. The silence after all the noise. Perhaps the greatest mystery is not the signal. It is what followed. Nothing certain. No landing. No announcement. No clear second chapter. Only decades of debate. That silence forces a choice. Dismiss everything. Believe everything. Or remain in the difficult middle where most truth lives. Maybe the event was misunderstood science. Maybe it was classified data. Maybe it was fiction built from fragments. Or maybe humanity once stood at the edge of the greatest revelation in history and stepped back without realizing it.
The observatory that closed overnight. High in a remote desert stood an aging observatory few people outside the scientific world had ever heard of. Its location was ideal: dry air, clear skies, little radio interference. For decades, it quietly gathered data from deep space. Then, with almost no public notice, operations ceased. Staff were transferred, funding vanished, equipment was removed under private contracts. Official statements cited modernization and budget priorities, a normal explanation. Yet locals reported trucks arriving only at night, entire antenna arrays dismantled under floodlights, storage containers marked with temporary seals. Why the urgency? Why not archive the site publicly? Abandoned facilities are common, but secrecy surrounding closure breeds stories. Some claim the observatory detected repeat anomalies too sensitive to ignore. Others say it was shut because independent scientists were too close to confirming the original signal. Truth may be mundane, but mystery enters when the lights go out too fast. The voices in the static. A group of audio researchers once processed alleged fragments of raw recordings through advanced filtering software. They expected random hiss. Instead, faint tonal layers appeared beneath the noise, ascending harmonics, rhythmic pulses. Then, what some described as vocal textures, not words, not language, something resembling multiple tones woven together like a choir underwater. Experts warned against overinterpretation. Compression artifacts and aggressive filtering often create phantom sounds. Still, listeners reacted emotionally. Many said the result felt unsettlingly intentional. Why? Because human brains are tuned to recognize voices. We evolved to detect them in wind, crowds, darkness. So when static begins to sound alive, fear follows quickly, and fear remembers what logic forgets. The star that wasn't there before. Several years after the first incident, astronomers cataloging a dense region of space noticed an object with unusual brightness fluctuations, too dim for easy study, too inconsistent to classify quickly. Some fringe researchers tied it to the direction of the signal. They proposed an engineered source, a beacon, a rotating structure, a power array partially obscured by dust. Mainstream science offered natural explanations: variable stars, measurement limits, observational noise. Likely correct. Yet the symbolism was irresistible. What if the cinder left a marker, something subtle enough to avoid panic, bright enough to be found by those searching hard enough, a cosmic breadcrumb? Even false clues can be powerful when they arrive in the right place. The dream reports. Over time, online forums collected strange testimonials from people obsessed with the signal. Many described vivid recurring dreams, dark oceans under unfamiliar moons, cities made of rings and towers, rooms filled with humming light, a sensation of being observed kindly but completely. Psychologists would recognize a pattern immediately. Shared narratives influence dreams, communities shape imagination, expectation feeds symbolism, but believers interpret it differently. They argue consciousness itself may be part of communication, that advanced intelligence would not send crude words, but impressions, images, emotions, archetypes. There is no evidence for this, yet stories of contact through dreams appear across cultures for a reason. Dreams feel real enough to change people, and sometimes that is all a myth needs. The file with no author. A digital document circulated briefly among researchers years ago. No clear source, no metadata trail. Its contents listed timestamps, frequencies, and internal jargon tied to the case. Most dismissed it immediately. Anyone can forge a file, but one detail caused discomfort. Several technical terms were obscure enough that only specialists would likely know them. Was it copied from real notes, written by an insider, or assembled by an enthusiast with excellent research? The file disappeared almost as quickly as it arrived, downloaded by some, denied by others, forgotten by many. Yet anonymous records have changed history before. Sometimes truth enters quietly, unsigned. The theory of the quiet filter. Some philosophers of science propose a chilling possibility. The universe may be full of civilizations, but advanced ones survive by staying silent. Broadcasting location openly could attract danger, predators, competitors, self-destruction. In this model, any species loudly announcing itself is naive. Humanity has been transmitting radio leakage for generations: music, military radar, television, coordinates hidden in our existence. If the signal was real, perhaps it was not a greeting. Perhaps it was a warning: be quiet. That idea terrifies people because it flips optimism into vulnerability. The stars become not empty, but cautious. The engineer who kept looking up. Friends of one retired systems engineer told a small story after his death. Every evening near sunset, he would step outside, stand still, and watch the same patch of sky. No telescope, no phone, just waiting. When asked why, he always gave the same answer. Sometimes they repeat when we stop listening. No one knows whether he ever worked on anything related to the case. Maybe he simply loved astronomy. Maybe he enjoyed mystery. Maybe he knew nothing at all. But a single habit can keep legends alive longer than documents ever could. Because habits feel honest, they are harder to fake than stories. The calendar of return. Enthusiasts comparing alleged transmission dates claim they formed long cyclical intervals tied loosely to planetary positions. Again, uncertain data built uncertain conclusions. Yet the narrative became powerful. The signal was periodic on scales longer than human attention spans. Not yearly, not monthly, generational. A civilization thinking in centuries would communicate differently than we do. It would not rush. It would send markers and wait, then send another when enough time had passed for development. If so, perhaps the silence is not absence. Perhaps we are simply impatient creatures measuring cosmic time with human clocks. The question of intent. Imagine you possess technology beyond our comprehension. You detect a young species arguing on a small blue planet. Would you land dramatically? Likely not. Would you invade noisily? Wasteful. Would you send a clear message that unites them? Perhaps too disruptive, but a faint signal, debatable, ambiguous, enough to inspire curiosity, science, philosophy, cooperation, enough to accelerate growth without domination, a whisper rather than an order. If true, ambiguity itself may be intentional. The uncertainty is the message. The human explanation. There is also a simpler possibility often ignored because it is less exciting. The signal may have been human from the start, an experimental project, a military transmission, a classified test using civilian instruments as unintended witnesses. Many mysteries become ordinary once paperwork emerges decades later. This explanation deserves respect, not because it is thrilling, but because reality often is bureaucratic. Still, even a human origin would raise profound questions. Who sent it? Why hide it?
Why allow the legend to grow? Sometimes secrecy creates monsters where not existent. Sometimes it hides real ones. The edge of belief. By now, the story exists in a strange state, too uncertain to confirm, too persistent to erase. That is where modern myths live, between evidence and imagination, between data and desire. People need stories that enlarge the world. Alien signals do exactly that. They turn routine nights into cosmic crossroads. They make observatories feel like temples. They remind ordinary lives that something larger may be possible. Even if false, such myths reveal truth about us. We want company in the universe, and we fear it too.